Say hello to this 2019 Mazda 3, and this hatchback puts the power to your pelvis. A little bit more on that later. Almost. Let's talk about how beautiful this car is. I mean, look at it. It's gorgeous. Has a nice long hood, has a short squared off back. It sits very low, and I love the silhouette of it. It is super, super cool. And if you don't agree with me or you think I'm wrong, head on over to Car and Driver's list of 50 most beautiful cars of 2021. Amongst all the Bugattis, the Koenigsegg's, super fast BMWs, and all the cars on there are over $100,000, sometimes worth millions of dollars. But this sub $40,000 hatchback made that list with all those other cars. It's truly impressive. Let's take a look at this key. And just at first glance, you're like, where the heck are the buttons? They're on the side. And the good thing about this is if you're lifting something heavy to your car and your keys are in your pocket and you're using the heavy object to kind of brace it against your hip, you might set off your car alarm. That won't happen with this because the keys are on the side. Another small feature you may not notice is when you unlock the car, the lights fade on. Not too many cars do that, and it's a nice luxurious touch. Another thing I like about the exterior styling of this car is the little fin that goes along here, this black fin. And it's not a running board. I don't think it's for aerodynamics. I think it's just for looks, but who knows, it is Mazda. They do odd things that end up just working, so maybe it is for aerodynamics. It's another new generation of Mazda, and that means another new generation of Mazda font. Yes, Mazda always changes the fonts on their car. No other automaker does this. So with Mazda here, they've got rid of the cursive font, and it's more kind of rounded and less aggressive looking. I don't really like it. I like the cursive one before, but it's just weird that Mazda will switch up their fonts. Now, there's a lot of things that get me excited in life, but nothing quite matches the excitement I get from this. Take a look at this. You push open the gas cap and you go to fill up your gas. In most cars, it just dangles here. It's pitiful. The Mazda 3 has a little bed for it, and it sits in there and you can tuck it in nicely and it doesn't scratch up your paint and get gas everywhere. It's amazing. So if you couldn't already tell, I love how this car looks. It's not boring, but it's not in your face. It has a very minimalistic sort of style to it. And what I also really like is how Mazda isn't copying the design trends that you see in all the car makers today, but Mazda's kind of in a league of its own, and I really like that about it. If you have an active lifestyle, you'll have a Sky Active lifestyle if you get a Mazda 3, because this has the Sky Active G motor. Now, what is Sky Active, you may ask? Well, simply, it's a technology that Mazda uses to increase fuel efficiency and horsepower in their motors. This makes about 186 horsepower, and this about the same in torque, which gives it the edge over other cars in its class, like the Honda Civic, the Ford Focus, and the Hyundai Elantra. And it weighs about 26 to 2,800 pounds, so it feels really peppy and feels really quick, and it's a perfect amount of power for this car. We'll talk about that more when we drive it. It also gets about 30 miles to the gallon combined city and highway, which is great considering it's a 2.5 liter engine. It's fairly big for a car of this size, and it's not a hybrid or anything. Moving to the cockpit of the 2019 Mazda 3, and I think some people might not like the inside of this, and I'm not talking about the design or anything. It's a very beautiful cockpit. It's a nice place to be, but it feels very small in here. The windows are tiny, the door lines are very high. You feel very kind of small and cramped in here. Even though you're not physically cramped, it just feels claustrophobic. If you like your cars to feel open and airy and bright, you might not like the inside of this car. But the quality and fit and finish and the features it does give you outweigh the little claustrophobicness that you might be able to get over if you do buy this car. The thing that's great about this car and all of Mazda's new interiors is they're just so simple. It's not riddled with buttons. It has everything you need in the places that you would expect them to be, and it's very easy to use, and it's nice to touch as well. All the buttons feel very nice. For example, the infotainment, you only got a total of 7 buttons to control the infotainment screen, and it's very simple to use. The infotainment screen itself is fantastic. It doesn't look like so much of an afterthought like it did in the previous generation Mazda 3. It just kind of slapped on the dash and looked like an iPad that's eaten too many Androids. It was fat. But this, it's more integrated, and the top of it doesn't exceed the hood line of the vehicle, so it doesn't impede your vision at all either. And it's also pretty quick and intuitive as well. It's very nice to use. Now, the driver's seat is a great place to sit. The steering wheel is very nice, feels great in the hands. It's a good girthy thickness. The steering wheel just lines perfectly with everything around it. It's so symmetrical, just everything lines up. It's very visually pleasing. And one thing I noticed is if Mazda had not put vents here and put gauges and extended the dash, it'd be like a Porsche dash. It'd be very similar with the way the gauges are set up, but obviously they didn't do that. One thing that's very interesting and very weird is to adjust your dash brightness. You have these buttons on the side, and it's very dim at first, so you put it up through the cycle and you expect it to get brighter, but it's still very dim until you press it enough and it's super bright. There's no in between. It's very, very funny. I guess Mazda didn't want you to have an in between. It's either super bright or super dim dash lights. It's very odd. Now the front is a nice place to be, but so is the back. If you're a normal size, if you're big and tall, then you might have an issue back here. But me, I'm sitting behind myself, and I'm not super tall, but I'm also not a midget. And I have about 1 inch of clearance right here, and it's not too bad. But it is small back here. It feels small. Like this window, I can barely get my head through. So I wouldn't be taking my friends on super long trips, so this isn't the best road trip vehicle. For 2 people sitting up front, it's awesome, but I think if you have to sit back here and you're slightly bigger for a long period of time, it'll be very uncomfortable. Now the trunk is a decent size too. So if you want to kidnap someone, you can. The seats also fold down like every other hatchback, and they fold down almost flat, so that's good. Sometimes they don't fold 100% flat, so you can get a lot of stuff back here. It is a hatchback. Didn't need to show you this, but I wanted to crawl through here. So what does this car have to do with your pelvis? Well, a lot actually. So what Mazda did is when they were designing this car, they looked at the human body first. They studied the natural position of the spine when you're walking and when you're standing, and they took that information and they applied it to the car. So they designed this car around the human body, and especially the seat. So right now my spine is in its natural kind of S-curve shape that it would be if I was standing. So I'm very comfortable. My pelvis is being cradled right now, and it's very comfortable, especially because these seats are very soft. They don't feel sporty. They're supportive, but they're not sporty. So what does this do? Well, this allows your neck muscles to stabilize your head when you're going over bumps, like you would if you're running or walking, because your spine is in its natural position. So this is a bumpy part of the road, and it just feels like the car is just moving around my head. And it sounds silly, it sounds gimmicky, but it works. It's the weirdest thing. Just going over that, it felt like nothing. It felt like my head was on a gimbal. And it's because my spine's in a natural position and my muscles and my body can counteract all the movements in the car properly. It's very, very clever, and it makes driving this car a joy. It's fun to roll through these gears. It's easy to heel toe and rev match. Feels very natural. Mazda knows how to make a nice driving car. This car might not be sporty oriented, but it's a lot of fun to rip through these gears in this transmission. There's a little bit of rev hang, but it's not that bad. The brakes are really good. Mazdas just have that fun factor of them, that zoom factor. It's absolutely awesome. Now this shifter is fantastic as well. A lot of other hatchbacks I've driven, it feels like the shifter is just shoved in a bag of stale marshmallows, but this, it doesn't feel vague. It feels very notchy. It feels great, and I really like it. It feels very like the Miata. It's short, there's not a lot of play in it. It's confidence inspiring. You can just go into gear and not have to worry about misshifting at all. The position is fantastic. I feel like this car is underrated as an enthusiast car. All the hype is on the Mazda 3 Turbo, and I haven't driven it yet. Yes, but right now I'd rather have this with the manual than the Mazda 3 Turbo with an automatic. It's a bold statement, but I would take shifting gears over extra 60 horsepower any day. It's quick, 0 to 60 in about, actually forget, doesn't even matter. It feels quick, it feels very peppy. It's no slouch. Another thing that's great about this 4th generation is the gears are a lot shorter, or at least they feel a lot shorter than the older generation. The older generation, the gears just felt super long, and revving them out, it wasn't really all that fun. But this, it's much shorter and it's a lot more engaging. Mazda's done a great thing because they've made this soft and comfortable, but it's still firm and sporty, and there's not an enormous amount of body roll. It's actually very nice. The driving position is also fantastic as well. I've adjusted it so I like it. I like to sit very low and the steering wheel very close to me, and obviously you can adjust the steering wheel 100%. It's telescopic, and you can adjust the seats however you want to. to dial in that driving position, which is great. It's also pretty quiet in here as well, and Mazda designed the car to eliminate the harsh impact noises that you get going over potholes or big bumps, and they've done a good job. It's very nice in here. Visibility isn't the greatest, but that's not too big of a deal because you do have blind spot indicators and lane assist and everything to keep you centered on the lane, which I don't really like too much. I feel like it's an excuse for drivers to be lazy behind the wheel because they know their car is just going to correct for them. So they can text away, they can Snapchat a cool car that they saw driving on the other side of the road, or they can eat their Big Mac and their fries, and the car will handle everything with them. I just feel like the more cars start to drive themselves, the lazier people are going to get. And that's true. It's already happening because I saw a guy watching a video, both hands, while his Tesla was self-driving for him. And yes, I know it's a self-driving car, but it's just going to make people lazy, and I honestly think people are going to get into more accidents. And that's the Mazda 3, folks. It's an awesome little hatchback, and if you like driving, you're going to like this car. The manual transmission is fantastic. It looks amazing. It handles really well. It cradles your pelvis. It's an all-around awesome car. Thank you for watching.